leisure segment down in Steubenville in our tour of the Smithsonian with Amanda. And now we're going to head down to Gallia County and join David and Rankin for some ceramics, and they'll give us a breakdown of what they do and some of the wonderful pieces that are made down in Gallia County, and get into how we may be able to connect some of you with these creative techniques that they've come up with. So without further ado, pass it over to Dave and Rankin. Allow you guys to teach us about ceramics. So thank you.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Wave at me if you can hear me. Hello, I'm David. This is Rankin. We're from Gallia County. We are at our ceramics location here, and we want to talk to you guys a little bit about the process of ceramics, making ceramics. Usually when you go to a store and you see a ceramic piece on the shelf and you're shopping for something for ceramics, you kind of see something like this that's already made. Usually it's going to be something that's painted, it's going to be shiny, have a little bit of a gloss or a glaze on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how this actual piece is actually made. So we'll go from step one to final piece here. So when ceramics is made, it comes in a liquid form, which is called ceramic slip. Rankin, you want to grab the slip here? This is neat here. So when you first get ceramics, it comes as liquid form like this. It's called ceramic slip. And it's almost like the consistency of like melted ice cream or a really thick milkshake, liquid form. So what you do, he's going to sit this over here for a second. What you're going to do is you're going to mix that up and put it into a form. But to get to actually make it a piece like this, what you do first is you pour it from liquid into a form and let it dry. Now there's a process here. I want to show you all the different processes. After it comes out of the mold, we pull it out and it looks like something like this. It's called greenware. See that right there? It's a little bit darker. This is before it goes into a kiln to be baked. So after greenware is put into a kiln, it becomes bisque. I think you can see the difference. Can you guys see the difference? The greenware is a little bit darker than the bisque. Well, the reason the bisque is so white is because all the moisture's out of it and it's set up into a hard form. So after the bisque piece gets done in the kiln, then you bring it in and you put your paint on it or you put a glaze. So here's the two different kinds of finished pieces. This is your glaze here. It's really shiny. We'll do that one in a couple of weeks. We'll do actually glaze a piece for you guys. And then this is an acrylic spray, which is, it's not as shiny, but there's a little bit of a shine to it. Okay. And if you guys have questions or anything as we're going, you just hit, there's a button you can hit on there to raise your hand and we'll stop and we'll take a question. So when the slip comes in, liquid form, what we do is we take it out of the bag, we put it in a bucket and you have to stir it up. Sometimes the slip in storage dries out a little bit, so it's too thick. Sometimes it's too thin, so you have to mix it up, almost like pancake batter. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move the camera over here a little bit. We're gonna track Rankin and watch him actually go through the process of mixing up the slip. So he's taking that slip, putting it into a bucket. So Rankin says it's a little bit thick right now. So it's sat in here for a while, so he's going to add a little bit of water to mix it up right. Then he'll show you the right consistency before we actually pour it. So he's getting his water bucket and he's coming back. I reckon when it's properly mixed, how thick should it be?
The consistency of about buttermilk.
consistency of buttermilk.
Let's try that. I have to add some more. It's getting there. Leave it there. Leave it there for now. Restir it again after we get the molds done.
Okay, so now Rankin, he's got the right consistency with his slip there. So what he's going to come over and do now is he's going to get a mold prepared. So this mold here is, what is this one here, Rankin?
That's the piggy bank.
Piggy bank. So we're going to actually make 3 pieces for you guys through this series. So this is what a mold looks like. So you kind of see the outline of the piggy bank right there. That's his nose right there. That's his back. That's his tail. This is the other side. It's kind of like a mirror image. So what we're going to do, what you do with your mold is you take your mold, put it together like this, and then he's going to put some really big, thick rubber bands on there to hold it together.
Clean it up, make sure there's no dust.
First, he's going to get all the dust out of there because that's set on the shelf for a little while.
It's the first time it hasn't been used in months.
So Rankin, why do you clean that out? What's the problem with dirt being in there or anything like that?
Anything that's in the mold, once you pour it, will come out in your casting.
So if you have some dirt or pieces of stick or
It
leaves
will
or something
leave
there.
pits in your casting.
Okay,
I've seen it happen.
you've seen it happen.
When you put your rubber bands on, make sure they are tight. Because if you don't, when you pour it, it will open up and you will get wet.
So that's the one thing about the ceramics, the split part is it's really messy. And so a little bit can just go a long way. If you drop it on the floor, it drips out. It's really hard to clean up. And then if you mop it, it kind of turns into a paste.
Anything you drop on the cardboard can still be recycled, but if it hits the floor, it needs to go in the trash because it's contaminated.
Which means
You can't use it.
it gets dirt in it. And if you get any kind of dirt or impurities in your ceramic, when you actually put it together, and it'll kind of be a weaker spot and it may break. So the 3 pieces we're going to make for the Rankin ceramic series is we got a piggy bank, we have a unicorn, which I know it's probably hard to see that. And then we also have a frog, which is this greenware piece right here. So
Rubber bands on, make sure they're good and tight. Stir this again.
all right, he's going to go back and re-stir his slip.
Always make sure it's good and stirred before you try to use it. It will settle.
Okay.
Set the bucket up here so they can see.
Okay, now he's going to bring the bucket over, set it on our pour table. And we usually have a setup to where we have a pour table, then we have like a section where we do clean the greenware, then a section where we're painting it. But just to make it easier, we're just putting it all together on one table. So get your strainer bucket.
Yeah.
So now, like we said, this gets really messy. So what we do is we get a strainer bucket. And so pretty much what it is, you take a little screen like this, little metal screen, you take any kind of bucket, and you put the screen over your bucket like that. Then you take, which one you want to pour first?
It don't matter, just pick one.
Then you take your mold.
That's the frog.
This is the frog. You set it over your bucket here. Oh, wait a minute.
It came apart.
We've got faulty equipment here. Okay. So you set your bucket, mold on the bucket, and then you're going to pour your slip into the mold. Oops.
You're dripping.
Okay, now that's totally full right there. You see where the slip's kind of coming up out of the mold there? That means it's totally full. Now, what Rankin's going to do is sit that up to the side. He's going to shake it a little bit, so he's shaking it. I'm tamping it on the table. He's getting all the air bubbles out. If you don't do this, you'll have air bubbles in your piece, and once again, it'll be a little bit fragile in certain areas and break on you.
I think he's coming out.
Okay, so he thinks he's got all the bubbles out, so he's going to move this mold out of the way now. Now he's adding just a little extra, few drops for good measure. Now, Rankin's going to run over and grab a timer that's over here.
Oh.
So once you pour this mold, you want to set your timer for 10 minutes.
Right there.
You'll sit that beside the mold. Now what's happening is that mold's pulling up the moisture from the slip into the mold, and it's actually caused it to dry out a little bit. So once you pour that mold, how long you leave this extra slip sit in the mold depends how thick your piece is going to be. So if you want a thinner piece, you take it out, you dump the slip out sooner. If you want a thicker piece, you leave it in longer. Okay, so he's going to pour a second mold now.
It helps if you got cardboard and catch any of the drip.
And just notice how he's taking his time. Now, once you start pouring too, you have to continually pour as quickly as you can, because what will happen if you say you were pouring half of a mold and the phone rang and you went to answer it and came back a couple minutes later and then fill the rest of it up, you're going to have a big line in your mold, in your piece there.
And it's best if you hold the mold by the seam so it doesn't separate on you.
Okay, now he's going to take and get another timer over there and set that one for 10 minutes.
This one needs a little bit. Now we're gonna do the piggy bank.
Okay, now we're going to do the piggy bank, the third one. Try to get a different angle this time.
This one takes more slip. You see it over here?
You gonna put it on your bucket?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that just
Okay,
wouldn't
there
be
you go.
moved.
Oh no, you're fine.
Oh.
Notice how steady Rankin keeps his hand. He's trying to keep all the excess slip from going all over the mold. Because like you said, once that gets on your mold, it gets on your hands. It's all over your clothes. It's all over your car seat. It's all over your
Anything you
shoes.
touch.
You track it in the house. You have white footprints all through the building. Not that that ever happens here.
The piggy bank's one of our most popular.
Which one is the hardest to put together and pour that you've done?
Probably the Christmas tree.
Christmas tree. And we have a huge Christmas tree. Do we have any in the back? Okay.
I can show them the mold.
Okay. So then he's tamping this one down, kind of shaking, getting all the air out of the mold on this one.
Draining like it usually does. Good day. Low one, that one.
And then he's going to grab his timer here in just a second and set the third timer. And you have to have a timer for each mold. Okay, and then he's setting that timer for 10 minutes. Now, you want to pull your, okay, Rankin's went somewhere here.
This is our most difficult.
Okay. This is our big Christmas tree here, right here. What is it, about 1.5 feet
Roughly.
by about 1 foot wide at the bottom?
It takes about a gallon and slip to pour it.
Yeah. So we have all kinds of different sizes. You see, we have some molds are this big, some are a little bit smaller. But we'll maybe next week we'll show you the rest of the molds. Okay, so he's going to put the mold back. Now, as you look down, you can kind of see why you need to be so careful when you're pouring your molds, because we've got slip dripped all over the place here, and that'll kind of dry and get muddy. So if you put your hand in it, you'll kind of have slip all over your hand. Okay, so he's going to continue filling his molds up.
Keep them full. Okay. Oh my God. One to put my straight.
This right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you see at the very top right here, it's kind of filled over a little bit. It's kind of bubbled up where you can see that the slip is actually just a little bit higher than your mold. So after that dries just a little bit, he's going to take a little metal scraper like this right here. He's going to scrape the excess off the top and put that back in his slip bucket. Here you go. There you go.
As long as it hasn't been in the kiln, it's all recyclable. This is my favorite tool.
Where'd you get that at?
It came with the tools.
Okay. Did you make that or?
No.
Okay.
When you ordered the tools and the tool set, you got one of them in it. So you just set a minute before I try that. Just get this out of the way. I figure for it dang, it ain't going down much. See here, you keep it from drying, because when it dries, it's hard to get clean.
So you can see right, he's got a bucket of water right here. He's cleaning up his tools with his hands. This stuff here, you never want to use a sink to clean up because this stuff, once it goes into a sink drain and dries, it's like cement. So it won't take long. You'd have your whole system plugged up. So what we do is we use this water here, then we go dump it outside and out in the backfield after we're done with it.
In there, so for a minute at the bottom still.
Okay, now he's gonna go scrape his molds. He's scraping the excess back into the slip bucket. See, and you see how it's kind of starting to get thicker already? That piece right there, this was liquid a few minutes ago. Now it's already a sludgy piece of like almost mud.
It makes it easier if you do this before you try to take them out the mold. There's some already thickened up. Today's a good day to be doing this. It ain't raining. Do for now. Don't want to jar too much.
Is it 10 minutes already?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, the first mold just, the timer just went off for the first mold.
It was this one.
Okay. Wait.
Up in here.
Okay, let's,
Bring it down. Make it easier.
okay. All right, so what happens after your timer goes off and the mold's set there for 10 minutes, you flip the mold back upside down. See that? And then all your excess slip's going to start dripping out of there. And what you do is you leave it on this slip bucket right here
For an hour.
for an hour. And you reset your timer. There you go. And what will happen during that hour, all of your excess slip's going to drip out of there. And your mold, your actual ceramic piece is going to start drying up a little bit. Okay, so he's got another couple minutes for his second mold, and he's going to keep cleaning his excess slip off there. And this stuff here, you want to clean as much as you can and save as much as you can, because that goes back into the bucket, and then you just add more water and use it again. So we're kind of stingy with our ceramic slip there.
Waste not, want not.
As you can see, it just keeps dripping down into this excess bucket here. Pretty messy, isn't it?
But I love it.
But Rankin loves it. Rankin scrubbing his hands, cleaning those tools. And it's important too, every time you work with a tool, you need to clean it after you're done, because this stuff will set up pretty quickly, then you won't be able to get it all the way off. Or you just leave it soak in water.
Usually I would leave it soak in water. Usually.
Okay, we're getting about ready to, much is left on that second mold there?
There's 5 minutes on this one. This one should be going off any time.
About 2 minutes, it looks like the other one's gonna go off. Rankin, have you ever spent a lot of time making a really extravagant piece, got everything out, got it out of the mold, and it broke on you?
This morning. It happens quite often, but anything that breaks, as long as it ain't in the kiln, you can just go ahead and recycle it.
So you can recycle it. So what would happen if, let's say, back over here real quick, Rankin.
Okay.
Get these pieces out of our way here. So sometimes Rankin spends hours and hours working on a really extravagant piece, and he pulls it up out of the mold and say something like the arm falls off of it.
And if you look, his head's about to fall.
His head's about to fall.
The,
So because this hasn't been put in the kiln yet and baked, you remember we talked about you have your greenware, which is like a little bit darker color. It's greenware because it hasn't went into the kiln yet. Then you have your bisque, which went into the kiln. So what Rankin was just saying is, like, with your greenware, you want to take care of that, then come back to this?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. Okay. So he's got his second mold here. He's going to flip back over on the slip bucket. Once again, we're draining all the excess slip, and if I get down in there, I think you might be able to see it dripping out. Pull that up. Can you hang it? There you go. See that excess slip coming out? That's what's going on, is we're draining the excess slip out of there. So if you didn't do that, that piece would be solid and be really heavy. So setting this timer there for an hour.
It'll take forever for it to dry.
Okay. So,
This one's about ready. A couple minutes and it'll be ready.
okay, if you want to step back over here, Rankin.
Let me get my bucket. This one might sound really empty.
Okay, anyways, back to the ceramic piece. So, where's your scraper? So if you are making a piece and you take it out of the mold and say like the arm breaks off, something like that, before you put it in the kiln, it's not a total loss, so you've lost some time, but what you can do is, you want the honors of,
You go ahead.
all right, you can actually take and cut the guy's head off, take your, see that? And because it hasn't been baked or anything like that, you can take and mash it back up. And then just throw it back into your ceramic slip. Oop, don't want to put it in there, do I?
That wouldn't hurt none.
Okay. Put it back in your bucket. Horse's head. Smash it up, put it back in your bucket. Bag. Okay. See that? real flexible and pliable. You just throw it back in your bucket and you can reclaim this. Just put water in it, mix it back up, and you got ceramic slip again.
Smaller the pieces, the easier it is to liquefy.
And have plenty of rags.
I'll do like I do, just run around dirty.
So it's not a total loss, but and then what he'll do is he'll mix it back up and then try that mold again. Some molds he's made several attempts. I think this right here, how many times did you have to?
6 months.
It took him 6 months, 6 months on this one right here. The reason this one was so hard is because there's so much detail. Like he's got like shoulders, he's got an extra ball, or what is a football helmet and the ball.
And the hardest part was the knee or the legs and the head.
The legs and the head.
The head would either break off or drop off the knees.
What makes it so hard is it's just such an intricate piece. There's so many curves and little extra areas, and then it's thin here and thick here, where you have something like your duck here, which is just like a two-piece mold. And there's very little detail as far as, you know, it's just a round head and a round body. So these right here are a lot easier to make.
Oh, I want to show him something else.
Okay, he's got something else he wants to show you guys. Then we also do things, like we said, we have different sizes. So you saw the Christmas tree, which is a piece about that big. Then we have things like this, which is like, we have a little holiday themed things. This is a Christmas ornament, little tiny mold there.
And these are the solid boards.
Frosty the Snowman, that was a pretty easy one there. Then the hardest part there was like the brim of his hat, where it's a little bit thinner. And we're about ready to turn our third mold back over to drip, to empty it. If you're doing multiple molds too, a lot of things start happening at once. So you got to be multitask oriented, which I'm not.
I'm going to wait for this one to go off for you.
Okay.
Because they should be going off any time.
So what are some of the pieces you've worked on since you started ceramics, Rankin?
Let's see. The Indian, the ducks, dogs, cats, chickens, pigs. We can even do dishes here. We got.
Okay, Rankin's.
Let's see. Let me find the plate. Here's the bowl.
Is that the one we have at the facility?
No, this
Okay.
one. This is just a little candy bowl.
Okay.
All you do, pour it in there. We can do mugs, little teeny animals.
You can see, we'll do a little panoramic here.
This is a little snail.
Right there's our mold shelf. We have our different molds. Quite a few molds.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the, okay, so.
About time for it to go off.
All right, so now he's going to do his third. Extra slip, like we said, we save all that we can. That's money right there. And he's going to go to his third pour bucket here, which has got the.
Drop the screw.
If you see, this has got the broken up Indian in it that we just threw in there. Now that excess slip will go in there.
I don't want to move it too much to get drained. about this.
And then Heisman set his third timer for an hour. And see how, show him the, all the excess slip on there. This is why you got to be careful as far as keeping your stuff clean, because look at that. Okay, so he's got that set for an hour. All right, now we'll step back over here and
What else?
grab your seat there, Rankin. So that's your
First step.
that's your first step to actually making a ceramic piece there.
Oh, okay, I'll do that.
Okay, so anyways, there's about 4 or 5 more steps. So this is step 1 here in actually making a ceramic piece. So just to go back over, when you make, okay, Rankin's got one more thing he wants to show you.
You don't have to time.
Once he gets to pouring, he has a hard time not pouring.
These you're gonna watch.
So those are, that's like a half mold where that's a solid piece. So you just pour it like that. And then what you'll do is you'll scrape off the excess slip and just leave it in the mold.
And then it goes or dries out a little bit, keep adding to it.
Yeah. So
It will shrink down.
we'll recap here. So whenever you make ceramic piece, remember it always starts out a liquid form. We pour it in the mold. And once it comes out of the mold, which next week we will take these actual same molds that we just poured and we'll start from there and go to the next process. But once it comes out of the mold, it's called greenware, and that's where it's that darker, softer, it's that darker, softer clay. You see, am I allowed to tear this one up?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see, like you can still pull these apart.
The legs are broke anyway. It needs to get back in the butt.
Kind of reminds you of a chocolate hollow Easter bunny you get on Easter. Almost the same consistency when it's the wet greenware. Then once your wet greenware dries out a little bit more, you start working on it. Now, when we pull these molds out or these pieces out next week, they're going to have little seams on them. And so Rankin's going to have an array of tools that he uses to clean off all the seams, and you'll watch him in action. We got a little bit like a green scouring pad to shape the things, the ears, the seams down to where it's smooth. But we'll do that next week. So once again, you got your liquid slip, which you pour it into the mold. You pull it out of your mold. It's called greenware. Once it goes into the kiln, which we'll do that in a couple of weeks, comes out of the kiln, it's like a real alabaster white, totally dried out. That's called bisque. And then once you get the bisque out, you paint it. You can spray an acrylic spray on there, got a little bit of a shine to it, or you can glaze it and it's really shiny. So that's the difference of the 2 finished pieces there. So that's step 1 in creating the masterpiece ceramics. We can open this up. If anybody has any questions or anything, you can push a button, raise your hand. We've been more than happy to.
I'll be glad to answer any questions you got.
Rankin would be more than happy to share a lot of wisdom he's learned over the past, year and a half?
Yep. When I started, I knew nothing.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Well, before you can take these out of the mold, they got to set at least a day.
So once you drain all the excess slip out of your mold, you'll flip it back over, and it needs to sit there sometimes it'll need to sit there for a day. If it's sunny and it's a summertime, it sits there sooner than later. If it's winter time, it's real wet and rainy. It may sit there for a couple of days. You just got to kind of get a feel for what the weather's like. So
These should come out in a day, the smaller ones. The bigger ones might take a day or two.
okay. So anybody got a question? Were we able to unmute the mics? Anybody wants to join in? And I see some hands raising.
All right.
Oh, spoon.
What it?
Spoon. Spring and fall and winter.
Yeah.
How long does it take to sit in the mulch?
In March?
In the mold.
No,
Oh, in the-
how long
At
how
least-
long does it take to sit in the mulch?
In the mold, well, it depends on how warm your building is. It depends how thick your piece is. If you have an average piece, and let's say it's a warmer time of the year, it's like summertime, it's really dry out, it would take about a day. If you poured that same mold and say it was like February, March, April, where it rains a lot and there's a lot of humidity and water in the air, it'd probably take a couple of days.
Okay.
Sometimes he's able to kind of open the mold up just a little bit and peek in, and he can tell when the mold's ready to come out, it's actually kind of dry, and you'll pull it out and it'll almost come out by itself. But if you start to pull and it feels like it's kind of tacky and stuck, you want to put it right back down, let it sit for another day or two.
Because if you pull it, it will split right down the middle.
So remember how the guy's or his arm was broke off? Well, that's kind of what will
Yeah.
happen. Pieces will come apart on you.
Okay.
Good question. Good question.
You're welcome. I like the art stuff.
Yeah.
How far away is you that place where you're at right now?
We are in southern Ohio in Gallia County. We're right on the river. We're right
Probably
on the,
like 2 hours from you, Caitlin.
and actually like
Oh.
see the river.
Maybe sometime I can visit that place.
We'd love to have you. You come down, we'll do some ceramics.
Whenever this COVID-19 is done.
That's right. So very interesting stuff there, Frank and Dave. Thank you guys so much
Thanks.
for the education and the lesson on Ceramics 101 and all the creative things that can be done. Now, how many different molds are there?
I think we counted around 300, 250 to
Okay.
300.
You can
All right.
order
And
them.
So you can get on Facebook. It's the same across the board. You always have someone that gets into ceramics and they buy like 1,000 molds, and their wife ends up like telling them they got to get the molds out of the basement of the garage, and then they sell them pennies on the dollar. So same thing happened with these molds here. We had a guy that was like dying to get rid of them, and so he gave us a really good deal on them. He let us back our truck up into his storage unit, and we just loaded molds until we couldn't load anymore.
very
Yeah.
cool. And so what are they, animals? And you
Different.
said you have some holidays.
We have like seasonal molds, like we have like Christmas trees, we have ornaments, we have some Halloween, like pumpkins, things like that.
Easter.
We have Easter bunnies. What else we have?
We got a little bit for Thanksgiving, Halloween.
Turkeys. And then we have some random things, like we got a hedgehog. He's pretty popular.
Yes, they love the hedgehog.
We got the duck. Everybody loves the duck.
That comes in a set of 7.
I love it.
And
So
then-
if you have any special requests out there, if there's something you love, like a turtle or a duck or anything like that, I'm sure they'd be happy to make whatever it is if it's available. So again, thank you guys so much for this segment. They're going to continue to be a little bit interesting from the educational standpoint. And I know next we're going to jump over to Harrison County and do some games. So get a little bit more interactive in what we're doing here. And we're really excited about that. So again, it'll start at the top of the hour. So that will begin around 12 o'clock for everybody. Thanks again, Dave and Rankin, for your time, and we will see you all soon.